Have you ever heard of a man who was asked to move an entire palace? It sounds impossible, right? Well, today we're diving into one of the most brilliant and funny stories from the ancient city of Baghdad, featuring the legendary trickster himself, Abu Nawas. This is the tale of how he outsmarted a powerful king with nothing but his quick wit and a flock of geese. Once upon a time, in the magnificent city of Baghdad, lived the great Caliph Harun al-Rashid. He had everything a king could desire: wealth, power, and a grand palace. But one morning, while gazing out from his balcony, he felt a strange sense of boredom. "This view is getting old," he declared to his ministers. "I wish this palace could be moved, just a little, to a spot with a better view." The ministers were stunned into silence. Move a palace, a massive structure of stone and marble. It was an absurd request, a task fit for giants, not men. But no one dared to question the king's whim. Seeing their hesitation, the king issued a challenge. "Who among you is clever enough to move my palace?" The hall was quiet. Then a sly smile spread across the king's face as he remembered the one person in his kingdom who thrived on impossible challenges. "Summon Abu Nawas," he commanded. "If anyone can do this, it is he." Soon, Abu Nawas, a man known more for his sharp tongue and clever poems than his physical strength, stood before the king. King Harun al-Rashid laid out the challenge. "Abu Nawas, I command you to move this palace to a new location within 1 week. If you succeed, a mountain of gold awaits you. But if you fail..." Double quote, the king's voice trailed off, leaving the threat hanging in the air. Any other person would have trembled, but Abu Nawas simply smiled. "Your Majesty," he said calmly, "I can move this palace. In fact, I only need 3 days to do it. But first, I require 3 days to prepare my special equipment." The king, intrigued and a little amused, agreed to the terms, giving Abu Nawas a total of 6 days. The entire court was buzzing with excitement and disbelief. What magical plan could Abu Nawas possibly have? What do you think he did? Did he hire an army of builders? Did he consult ancient sorcerers for a powerful spell? No, Abu Nawas's plan was far more unusual. He didn't dig a single trench or lift a single stone. Instead, he asked the palace servants for 2 simple things: 15 healthy geese and a very long, very strong rope. The servants were puzzled, but they followed his orders. For 3 days, Abu Nawas did nothing but feed the geese and inspect the rope. Much to the confusion of everyone watching, the entire city of Baghdad held its breath, waiting to see what he would do next. On the 6th day, a huge crowd gathered outside the palace. The king, his ministers, and all the royal courtiers stood with eager anticipation. They were all there to witness the so-called miracle. How would one man and a handful of geese move a colossal palace? Abu Nawas appeared, looking completely confident. He calmly directed the servants to tie the long rope securely around the entire base of the palace. It was a strange sight, the grand building wrapped up like a giant gift. Then came the truly bizarre part. Abu Nawas took the other end of the rope and carefully tied it to the 15 geese he had prepared. A wave of murmurs and stifled laughter rippled through the crowd. The king could no longer contain his disbelief and anger. "Abu Nawas," he roared, "have you lost your mind? Do you truly expect 15 birds to pull a palace that weighs thousands of tons? Are you making a fool of me?" The king was half furious, half amused by the sheer absurdity of the scene. Abu Nawas turned to the king with a perfectly innocent expression. "Patience, your majesty," he replied smoothly. "Of course, these geese cannot pull the palace. It is the palace that will pull the geese." This statement only deepened the confusion. The palace will pull the geese. What did that even mean? The crowd stared, completely baffled. The king squinted, trying to understand the riddle. Abu Nawas had everyone exactly where he wanted them, hanging on his every word. Then, with a little signal, Abu Nawas put the final part of his plan into action. He had instructed his servants to scatter a large amount of wheat and breadcrumbs at the exact spot where the king wanted the palace to be moved. The geese, having been kept hungry, immediately spotted the feast in the distance. With a great flap of their wings and loud honks, they started running towards the food, desperate to eat. As the geese scrambled forward, the rope tied to them pulled taut. It stretched and strained, but of course the palace didn't budge an inch. Instead, the rope acted as an anchor. The hungry geese, pulling with all their might against the immovable palace, were effectively moved from their original spot, held back only by the rope. Seeing this, Abu Nawas turned to the king and exclaimed triumphantly, "Look, your majesty, the palace has moved them. Did I not say the palace would pull the geese?" He gestured towards the struggling birds, which had indeed been moved by the tension of the rope connected to the stationary palace. He had fulfilled the king's command, not by moving the building, but by cleverly twisting the words of the challenge itself. The king stared at the scene for a long moment. He looked at the unmoving palace, then at the geese straining against the rope, and finally at the clever, smiling face of Abu Nawas. Suddenly, the king burst into a loud, hearty laugh. He had been outsmarted once again. He understood the genius of the trick. The palace hadn't moved, but Abu Nawas had cleverly fulfilled the literal, albeit nonsensical, logic he had proposed. The palace pulled the geese, moving them from one place to another. True to his word, the king had to admit defeat. He couldn't punish Abu Nawas for failing, because, in a way, he had succeeded. The king, appreciating the brilliant display of wit, rewarded Abu Nawas with a generous amount of gold as promised. The story of how Abu Nawas moved the palace with a flock of geese became a legend, told and retold throughout Baghdad and beyond. So, what's the lesson here? This hilarious story teaches us that true power doesn't always come from brute strength or immense resources. Sometimes, the sharpest tool you have is your mind. The ability to think creatively, play with words, and see a problem from a completely different angle can solve even the most impossible challenges. Abu Nawas proved that wit and cleverness can be far more powerful than muscle. What did you think of Abu Nawas's clever solution? It just goes to show that a little bit of creative thinking can go a long way. If you enjoyed this tale of wit and wisdom, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories from history and folklore. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.